Namaste, Mabuhay. So I'm Aparna, back with my The Soul Yatra Unfolds. We have a very interesting topic today, something what we do every moment in our life. What do we really do? We breathe, right? So today we are going to talk about breathing. How does it impact our life and how important it is for our day-to-day health. I'm sure you all have heard of this breathing exercise called pranayama, or we say it pranayam, very commonly nowadays, especially associated with yoga or our mental health. What I really want to talk today about that is, what's the logic or the science behind this? How can it help us feel better? How does it influence our physical and mental health? So stay tuned in. You're going to find some very, very interesting information to set you thinking, which you probably never ever thought until now, that this is how breathing affects you. As normal human being, it's about 20,000 breaths a day. So we breathe about 20,000 times, which the air goes into our body, and part of the air is oxygen, where it refurbishes our tissues, our cells, and then we release carbon dioxide, which naturally forms due to the result of cellular metabolism. An average adult, while resting, inhales and exhales 7 or 8 liters of air per minute, which means about 11,000 liters of air per day. Out of this, 20% is oxygen. Every time we breathe in, the air goes to our lungs. A pair of lungs typically has 500 million tiny air sacs, which are called alveoli. It is on the walls of these alveoli where the gases pass between the airway and the bloodstream. The total surface area of this interface is about 750 square feet. So 750 square feet, somewhere could be a 1-bedroom apartment, and in some cities it could even be a 2-bedroom apartment. So you can imagine the surface area our 2 pair of lungs hold with the alveoli what we have there. Now we come to the next piece. Now, how is breathing connected with our brain? Because when we talk of pranayam or when we talk of breathing exercises, we're talking about mental health or the state of our mind. The heart muscles are controlled and managed by something called the pacemaker, which controls its rhythmic cellular movement. This pacemaker sets the rhythm of the heart. So that means this is triggered by the heart muscle itself. But the muscle that controls the breathing comes from the brain, meaning it takes its orders from the brain. You know, it's very surprising that for many years, we did not know this. The medical world itself probably got a complete clarity about this in the early 1900s, I would say, or in fact, middle of the decade. There was an experiment done where they found that there is a network of neurons which influence through electric movements how breathing is facilitated inside the body or supported inside the body. There is a complex of neurons. A human mind has about 10,000 neurons for this specific activity, where spontaneously it exhibits rhythmic bursts of electrical activity that is relayed through intermediate neurons, and then finally that directs the muscles that control the breathing. So now, after knowing a little bit, a basic about how we breathe, what is the area where we breathe in, now let's come to how is it going to impact us from, again, coming to our physical and mental state. So we have something called the autonomic nervous system, which is a part of the peripheral nervous system. Now, this autonomic nervous system is divided between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Now, what are these two systems? So, sympathetic nervous system is defined as the fight or the flight response system. The parasympathetic nervous system is related to the rest and the digest or a stable state of our nervous system function. Now, what is interesting is that these two functions do not work simultaneously. If parasympathetic is triggered, then sympathetic nervous system kind of steps back. And when we get into fight or flight response system, the parasympathetic nervous system ceases to work at that point of time. What does the parasympathetic nervous system do? So when we live in a parasympathetic nervous state of mind, the first most important thing which it happens at that time is our digestion process. So the digestion process is at its fullest and functions at its best when we are in our parasympathetic nervous system. At this time, when digestion is on, there is a lot of metabolic activity going on in the body. Hence, the best hormones, I would say, are released during this time. All the happiness hormones are usually released at this time, because you all should remember that the happiness hormone, especially serotonin, is not just produced in the brain, but most of it is produced in our gut lining. If your digestion system is not active and your gut lining is not clean or clear, it will not produce serotonin, the happiness hormone. Then we have oxytocin, which is the love hormone, what we call dopamine, the hormone of euphoria, the feel-good factor. And then we've got many other good hormones which are produced at this time. Your immune system is refurbished when we are in parasympathetic nervous system. All the glands, hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal, are active at this time in all actions to support the body at physical and mental level both. It's like the hypothalamus is the doctor of the body, the pituitary is the pharmacy of the body. So that's, and pituitary and pineal we know is more transformative, but all these three together are positively active during parasympathetic nervous system to help our body be at the best state. The parasympathetic nervous system is known to decrease respiration, so it slows down the heartbeat and it increases digestion, resulting into higher metabolism. And now we said that the sympathetic nervous system is the opposite of parasympathetic nervous system. Here comes a thought of stress, or when we are ready to act. It could be to go to work, it could be to do something important. That's when your sympathetic nervous system is triggered. Now, what's the first reaction of sympathetic nervous system? Very often, especially when we are in a state of fear or extreme anxiety or tensed, the first thing we notice that there is a strange feeling in our stomach, right? That's basically an indication that your digestion process is now stopped. And we have switched to sympathetic nervous system, or the fight or the flight response system. What happens during this time? At this time, obviously we need a lot of energy, right? So cortisol, the stress hormone, is released. Adrenaline is released. Our heart beats faster because we need a lot of blood in every remotest area or the finest nerve endings in our hands and legs, so that we can function or we can be super active. So the heart beats faster. Our pupils would typically dilate at this point of time. We need energy. So usually it's, we have some glucose or sugar which is being released, but now that release, it quite amplifies because we need sugar to blend with oxygen to give us energy. In fact, these are the times when pancreas, which is like a backup, starts supporting liver to give us many more times of sugar what we need at this point of time. In fact, you will notice that it is during stress, there's a tendency to also eat a lot of sweets or chocolates, because that unmindfully, we are in fight or flight response system, and the body is craving for that sugar to create more oxygen. So I'll tell you some interesting things which is contradictory, which happens at this point of time. So in sympathetic nervous system, your pupils will dilate, but when you are in parasympathetic nervous system, actually it constricts. So it's interesting to know what are the key differences between both these systems. When you are in sympathetic nervous system, your tongue tends to be dry, but in the other mode of nervous system, you actually salivate more. So saliva increases more, which is one of the key factors leading to digestion. I'll tell you something more interesting. When you are in parasympathetic nervous system, there are something called lacrimal glands that produce tears, which become more active. So very often you find when you're happy, when you're laughing, you tend to have tears, because that's that gland which becomes active. But in a fight or flight response system, you don't really see people crying or being emotional. These are the key differences between these two systems, or the state we are in, and why we behave or react, our body reacts in a certain manner. It is during sympathetic nervous system that you won't feel hungry. You could live for a long time without food. You could even stay for a long time without going for any excretionary activity, because there is a contraction. The nerves in the stomach in the trunk, and nerves that go to the bladder also tighten. So the release, any such kind of feeling of release ceases at that point of time. So this will answer why we say sometimes that, we could stay without food for a long time. We could just continue working or be in an active state without desiring food or without feeling emotional or without even taking a break, right? We sometimes take pride in that. Now, typically, a human body is designed most of its time to remain in a parasympathetic nervous system, not most of the time in a sympathetic nervous system. But unfortunately, in today's demanding world, most likely we are triggered in this response mode, which is the fight or the flight response system. And hence now you'll realize why a lot of good things, what is supposed to happen in the body, it's not happening. And that ultimately is resulting in a whole bunch of diseases which did not exist, I would say, until a century ago. Now that we've got a very clear understanding of these two systems, let's see how we relate it to our breathing exercises, what we call pranayam. So if you look at the word, prana is the life force what we breathe in, or pran in Sanskrit or Hindi. And pranayam means to exercise or keep that breath in control or in our favor. So pranayam, getting in control of this life force what we breathe to our advantage. I'll share some interesting outcomes of how we breathe and what are the different results. So breathing exercises are of very different types. They have been prescribed. Sometimes it's deep inhalation, hold it, and then exhalation. Sometimes it's like breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So there are different patterns of breathing with a little bit of hand gestures are also prescribed. So when you inhale air, obviously it goes into your lungs. Now what happens? When it goes to your lungs, it goes to those small alveoli we spoke about. Those alveoli are those sacs over the lungs where this process takes place. Now, as we grow, those sacs or those alveoli get polluted due to environment, due to our habits, and our breathing capacity reduces. So you see a child who could jump so much more than us. As we grow into adulthood, that capacity reduces. Why? Because these sacs are polluted now, so the ability of them to take in more air reduces. Now, one of the exercises where you breathe in air, you hold, and then you release it after a few seconds as per your capacity. And then when you start, you could just hold it for a few seconds, and then you could increase that holding capacity as you practice. What's the outcome of this? So when you breathe in air, and when that air goes into your alveoli, and then when you hold breathe, now what the air will do? What is the basic nature of air? Air cannot stand still. It is one of the fastest moving element in this world. So now when you hold breathe, that air panics. So when it panics, it forces its way, it tries to move. In that process, it starts opening up the clogged alveoli or those sacs. That's cleaning up. So if you do this every day, over a period of time, all the alveoli on your lungs will eventually start opening up, and you will start regaining your breathing capacity or your lung capacity. On the other side, what does it do? When this air finally goes to every part of your body, and of course goes to your brain. We all know that we use very little percentage of our brain capillaries, and there is a lot of room and scope for us to enhance the scope of using that, which ultimately is supposed to make us more intelligent. So now when we breathe in and when this air goes to your brain, it does the same thing what it was doing to your alveoli. It starts forcing open unused brain capillaries. And hence, over a period of time, it has been seen the cognitive intelligence of people increase over a period of time. So that means people who breathe in, who hold, and do this exercise every day, over a period of time, their lung capacity as well as their cognitive intelligence gets better, improved. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I tried to make it as simple as possible, and I will be making different other episodes on specifics about postures, how they help us, yoga postures or breathing, specific kind of breathing, and what kind of long-lasting impact they have in our life. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me, and I'll be back soon with more insights. Thank you so much. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and ring the notification bell. Thank you so much.